Well, hey there, everybody, and welcome back to the Four String Strummer, the channel that's all about ukuleles. Today, we're going to be taking a look at banjo ukuleles, some of the different factors that you may want to consider to ensure that you get an instrument that best suits you. All right, let's get into it. So we have three different banjo ukuleles from three different manufacturers. It's sort of three different levels as well. Okay, so I've got a camise here, and your folks are probably familiar with these. You see these quite often on Amazon. They're sort of an entry-level, lower-priced unit. We have one here from Ohana, and I also have another one here from Duke Banjo Ukuleles. Now, again, there are lots of different models and makes, etc., but I'm going to use these ones just to demonstrate differences that you may see from one manufacturer to another, from one design to another. Okay, so we're going to start off first of all with the camise and go over the pluses and minuses of something like this. So camise is what I would refer to, not disrespectfully, as an Amazon brand. So they sell basically all their instruments directly through Amazon. They don't go through retailers, etc. They use Amazon as their retail channel. Now, these instruments are pretty inexpensive. You can purchase these in the United States for around $100, and they normally come in a kit. So it includes the instrument. I'll go through the accessories package, but you get a full pack of accessories that comes with that. So to get you started, pretty much you have everything that you need there. All right, so this instrument, it has an 8-inch pot, okay, the actual size of the rim here, 8 inches. And you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you've got 12 different hooks on here. And these are tensioning hooks, so that helps to keep the tension on the head, right? So there isn't an exact amount that you should or shouldn't have. Each number will have their own advantage. The more hooks that you have on an instrument, the idea is that as long as they're basically evenly spaced around the head of the instrument, you're going to get an even tension across the top. All right, but these instruments are made of a wood called sapele. It's very similar to like a mahogany. Okay, and this particular one has a closed back. So the closed back is going to give you a certain type of a sound, which we'll do sound samples for all of them and you'll be able to hear it. But a lot of people think that it tends to mellow the sound out a little bit, which can be nice if that's the kind of sound you're looking for. You can see it's got nice little trim around here, right? Because aesthetics matter as well. Okay, you've got a dark hardwood fretboard, and it has a bound fretboard here. So you've got this piece of white ABS plastic that goes down the side, and you've got side dot markers on there. And you have position dot markers on the face of the fretboard as well. So those are pretty nice features to have on the instrument because that helps you to see where you're at. The dark wood with the light colored position dot markers and vice versa, the contrast for the side dot markers on the binding. It makes it nice and easy to see. It doesn't matter if you're in a well-lit environment or you're in a dark pub or something like that and playing along, you can see where you're at. Moving up the headstock here, it's got a nicely shaped headstock on it. Camise is just engraved right into the head. Okay, this particular unit also comes with a truss rod. So a truss rod is a metal rod and it's threaded, runs down the length of the neck, and basically you can tighten or loosen that and you can set a different shape to the neck, basically like a bow into the neck. Not something that honestly I don't really know that you need one on an instrument like this. These are pretty low tension strings, and the amount that your neck is going to need to have you know, a set put into it. And the average person, honestly, they don't know enough about it and they end up over tightening them and breaking them quite often. So anyway, it's there, and it's not something that takes away from the value of the instrument by any stretch. And these have closed gear tuners on them. They're sealed tuners rather, and you know the nice thing with that is that it keeps the dust out, etc. And they have a pretty fine tuning ratio on them. So you you can really tune them in finely, okay? It takes a little bit more turning to get them to where they need to be, but you can be pretty accurate with them that way, right? I've never really had any problems with the tuners. I've owned quite a few of these types of instruments, Camise, Acklot, etc. They're basically the same parent company, I believe. And the tuners tend to be pretty decent on these. These have a plastic nut here. You know, that's okay for what it is. The strings are pretty easy to change on this. You can see the tailpiece here, and basically what happens is the string just goes over the top, and then if you look on the back here, you can see all you do is you just tie a little knot and you thread the string through the little hole here in the tailpiece. And that's pretty much all there is to it. You connect it up at the tuning peg and tighten it up. The only thing that you have to watch is quality control on something like a tailpiece. If those are sharp, like if when they drill the holes out that they're not, you know, deburred basically, and you have a sharp piece there, especially with nylon type of a string, it can cut through that pretty quickly and you end up with broken strings. Okay, generally speaking, these instruments are, you know, decent quality for what you're paying for them. You do have to watch them though, to be honest. This one, for instance, it needs fret work. It needs to have the frets dressed on the ends. They're sharp, and I've had a number of them that have had that issue. This is the only instrument that I've bought that comes with sandpaper. and I think the reason is that they know that at some point you're probably going to end up having to do the fret dressing on it. Not a huge thing, but a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. So you have to watch that. This particular one, it's not too bad. The grain is off on this, like the grain is kind of heading one direction and the neck is heading a different direction. I've had them, you know, with angles kind of like that. And to me, that just shows a lack of attention to the detail. Again, it doesn't really affect the sound at all. So, you know, maybe it's just me and I'm just a little bit on the picky side. But I've also had one where the nut, I had to basically take the string off, refill the slot in the nut, and then refile it again because it wasn't filed properly and it was so low that it buzzed horribly. It was basically almost unplayable the way that it was. Now again, I could have just sent it back and got a refund or got another one or whatever. But those are the types of things that you have to watch out for. Action on these generally has been pretty good, and again, I've owned a number of them. So that's decent. I've only ever had the one that had the string buzz, and that was actually due to the nut, as I mentioned. But generally speaking, the action on these is pretty good. All right, so that's sort of the ins and outs of a camise, sort of cheap and cheerful, kind of a banjo ukulele, and we'll hear a sound sample a little bit on it as well. Let's take a look at the Ohana now. All right, so here we are with the Ohana. Now the Ohana looks similar to the camise. It has an 8-inch pot, very similar, right? It has quite a few more tensioning hooks, okay? So this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's got 16 around. And again, so the idea with the tension hooks is there's varying thoughts on it, right? That will give you a more even tension, and it will give you less tension on each hook. So each hook doesn't have to work as hard. So they don't have to be quite as large or as strong, okay? Now this one has what they call a closed back, but if you look at the back on this one, it actually has a space. You can see it here. There's a little spacer, and what that does is it creates this little almost like a sound port kind of thing, like, you know, how you see on the standard ukuleles how they have a little hole here sometimes, and that acts almost like a more of a resonator than the completely closed back. So that increases the amount of sound you hear. I find as a player I can hear this one better than I can the closed back model. It seems to reflect the sound up here. Now, one of the other things that you'll notice on this one is this has a Remo head on it, okay? Remo, again, it's a name brand. Like Ohana, it's known worldwide for the quality, etc. So you're getting something that it has that name behind it. I guess I'll put it that way. And I look at Ohana as an example and as a name brand instrument. And what does that really mean? Well, it just means a promise of quality that they make and that they have to uphold. I've been dealing Ohana for a little while now, and of all of the Ohana instruments I've got, banjo ukuleles or standard ukuleles, I've never ever had to touch one. And the reason is that they go from the factory directly to the head office in California, where Ohana looks them over. They check everything, all the quality control is double checked there, and then they're set up by their technician there. So you know that the action is going to be bang on. You're not going to have fret buzzes. You're just not going to have an issue with it, right? And there's a lot to be said for that. And that's where you're dealing also then through a dealership. Okay, and so you got somebody like myself or your local dealer store in the area where you live that is also going to look at it. And if you have any issues, any questions, etc., you go back to that person and they're going to help you out. You know that they're going to stand behind it, and you also know that Ohana is going to stand behind it. They're excellent like that. They're a family business, and it means a lot to them. All right, you look at things like the detail on the back. The grain is set really nicely on this. This is a really nice sort of a vintage style finish on it. You go up here to the tuners, and again, back to brand name stuff. These are Grover tuners, and Grover, that's their business, is tuners, right? So you're getting a really good, high quality tuner. I like the look of these tuners as well, because being a vintage sort of a style instrument, those open tuners to me look really cool. And just the shape of those, the buttons on these are sort of that butter bean sort of a look on them. All right, flip it over here. You've got a nice headstock, very sort of classy and understated with the logo right on there. You have a bone nut on this one as opposed to a plastic nut. And again, that's where the vibration is transferred through the nut and through the bridge. So this has a maple bridge with ebony top. The saddle basically on the top is ebony. And those are your prime materials for the transfer of the vibration to the top of the instrument. Okay, the neck on this instrument up here at the nut, it has about a 35 mil nut width, going back to that. And the neck profile on this, I find, is sort of more rounded than maybe the Camise, and what you'll see with the Duke as well. The Duke and the Camise tend to have sort of a flatter section, less of a U shape, I guess is the way to put it, or a semicircle. This one has a chunkier sort of a feel to it. Again, neither are right or wrong. It's just what you like the feel of. I find this one, again, it has a little bit more in the hand, and it feels pretty nice that way. Your mileage may vary, as they say, right? Depends on what you like. But that is one of the key differences to the feel of this instrument. This is a fairly hefty instrument, has a bit of weight to it, and some people like that as well, and the mass adds to the sound. Okay, we'll look at some of the other ones, and weight is considerably less. We'll talk about that with the Duke. Okay, these instruments are sold as instrument only. Okay, so there's no accessory package, there's no strap, there's no gig bag, there's no case. It's just the instrument. Okay, now some people will look at that and say, oh, well, that one comes with this or that one comes with that. Sure, but all of those different features that you add on, they take the price up. And you may not get the exact thing that you want. You may get the one that their marketing department decides that you want. Okay, so you've got to kind of look at it like that. With an instrument that's instrument only, you can choose. You can pick a certain strap, you can pick a certain kind of gig bag or case or whatever it is that you want to get. And then you're getting the exact package that's right for you. All right, let's take a look at the Duke now. All right, so the Duke, this is the Duke 10. This is their latest model. This is called the Duke 10 version 3. And this one just came out just a little while ago. And Duke does things a little bit differently than most of the other banjo ukulele manufacturers out there. First of all, with Duke, this is the only instrument that they make. It's their prime focus. So they've put a lot of energy and effort into deciding what they think makes for the best banjo ukulele, because it's their main focus. Okay, so right out of the gate, you notice the larger size of the head on this instrument, right? The actual pot itself. It's a 10-inch versus an 8-inch. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when you put them side by side, you can see it's considerable. Okay. So you've got that, and when you look here at the hooks, you've got just 8. Okay, so again, they need to be evenly spaced in order to get an even tension. But the way that they look at this is that they feel that reducing the number of hooks reduces the amount of weight that you're carrying around and the cost as well, because each one of those hooks, obviously it costs to put those on there. The actual hardware costs, it costs the labor to put it on, etc., etc. So the one thing that you really notice with this as well when you pick it up is how light it is. Okay, this only weighs about 2 pounds as opposed to something like the Ohana, which is about 3.5. Okay, and you look at this and you think, wow, that's going to be heavier because it's bigger, but it's not. It's considerably lighter. Okay, one of the nice features that Duke includes on all of their instruments, and this is something to think about, is a nice armrest. Okay, so when you're playing, not only is it comfortable, the other thing that an armrest will do for you is that it keeps your arm off the top a little bit as well. All right, so you're not dampening the vibration that's going into the top by sort of muting it with your arm. That's what I find. You don't feel that with an armrest. When you're playing one without, you do. And also on an instrument without, sometimes what you'll find is that your arm kind of rubs and the hooks can dig into your forearm a little bit, and it can be a bit uncomfortable, right? So that's a difference there. They also do a little bit of a different thing here with the tailpiece. So you'll see the way the strings come over here, they just go right over the top. And then underneath, I'll just try and get it in close here, you can see they don't actually pass through the tailpiece, the strings. They just kind of wrap over the smooth edge, and then they go to the inside. And that's where they're tied off. Let me see if you can see it there. If you look closely, you can see there's little black beads there, and that's the end of your string. Okay, so all they do is you just tie a little knot, and there's a little bead on it. You run it through the hole in the end of the rim, and then you just feed it up over the top of the metal. So there's no sort of sharp edges or anything that are going to touch the string. So it's a good, I think it's a good design idea, the way that they do that. The other thing you're going to notice inside here is these have a solid rod here, similar to what the old style banjos had, like back in the 20s or whatever, and they just had like a dowel stick. And that's the thinking with these as well. It's just once it's set, you've set your neck angle to the actual head of the instrument, and these really don't move that much. You can play around with them. The other ones have what they call a coordinator rod. I'll put an image up of it. And basically you just tighten it or loosen it, and that can change the angle here to change the action. Okay? But if you set up the neck angle right in the first place, there's really, their thinking is there's not a lot of reason to be playing around with that, because it's really not going to move that much. These are pretty low tensioned instruments, right? So this just has this nice little rod here that comes through. And the other thing that you notice is these have a pickup, and they don't just have a single pickup, they have a double pickup. So they've placed these one on each side to get the best balanced sound. So when you get a Duke, if you want to go out and play a gig, you can just go out, you can plug in, boof, and off you go. And this is a clean system because it's hidden in behind the banjo ukulele, not on the front, okay? When you look at the camise as an example, it does come with a little pickup actually, and it's just a little stick-on pickup like that, but they go on the outside, and they look kind of homely if you want my honest opinion. They're pretty ugly. Now you could take the back off of the closed back camise, and you could put it on the inside, and then just drill a small hole in the back of the closed back and have the wiring come out that way too. Okay, but this one, it comes all set up, what they call gig ready. All right. Very nice fretwork on this. It's walnut for the fretboard on this, as is the Ohana that we looked at. The Ohana is a black walnut. And you've got side dot markers on here that you can see. And position dot markers along there. This has a bone nut, and the bridge and saddle is the same as on the Ohana, where it's maple with ebony on the top. Okay, you look at the back here, these tuners are really kind of cool. They're vintage sort of a style, the planetary style tuners, and these are meant to mimic the look of the old original tuners that they had that were basically just tapered pegs. And but obviously those were difficult to get to be really accurate easily for people. So they've gone with these, and this is what they call planetary tuners. That's the type of gears that they have inside, and these are 4-to-1, so they're pretty quick to tune, as opposed to something like a guitar style, more like what's on the Ohana. Okay, those are probably like 16-to-1 or something like that. So you can be much more micro specific with the 16-to-1 than you can with the 4-to-1, but these are really nice and quick. They hold their tune really well, and then this one also has this sort of a funky shape. One of the things that I find about the Duke is that when you walk into a jam session with one of these, people know what it is because it has that different look to it overall. All right, those are some of the key features and ideas on all of these different instruments. And what you want to do is to figure out what works best for you. And when you think about things like the accessory packages, as I mentioned on the Ohana, it doesn't come with anything. It's just instrument only. When you look at an instrument like this comes, I think, with some really good key accessories. So it has the pickup, which is already built into it. Now, does everybody need a pickup? No, maybe not. But the nice thing with this is that if you're playing even in a song circle with a bunch of friends and there's guitars around, etc., it doesn't mean that you're playing on stage necessarily. But if you want to be heard, you can get one of those little portable amplifiers and plug this in just to give yourself a little bit of a boost to bring you up to the volume of a steel string guitar, mandolin, etc., right? Because they can be pretty loud. And while people will say banjo ukuleles are loud, they're generally not as loud as something like a steel string guitar, particularly if you got a whole bunch of them in a song group. So that's where that's nice. This instrument also comes with a really nice strap, just black, so it's nice and neutral. It's got the Duke logo on it. I'll put an image of that up for you here. And it comes also with probably the nicest hardshell case that I've seen for a ukulele. They're gorgeous. It has like this sort of a tweed twill sort of a finish on the outside, really plush interior on the inside, and they're custom made specifically for these instruments, right? And that case alone would probably be over $100, I would say. When you look at the overall price of this instrument in US dollars, this is about $400. You know, you're getting that case, you're getting that pickup, and you're getting that strap, right? So there's a lot of value in that. Again, those features and benefits have to work for you. But I think most people are going to see the value in that. Okay, so when you talk price comparison of an instrument like this to something like maybe the Ohana, that's about $100 less, okay, but you're getting instrument only. Then you have to start adding on other things. There's really not a lot of difference in price there, okay? Let's take a look at the Camisa's package now as well. All right, so the camise comes pretty complete, as I mentioned. It comes with a little gig bag. It's just a cloth bag, very basic, but it's enough that you can put the instrument in it. You can put it over your shoulder and carry it off to your local song circle or whatever. It's not something that I would say gives you any protection. It's not padded or anything like that. It's just sort of a basic carrying bag. It comes with a tuner, little electronic tuner, which is kind of nice to have. And it has a strap that's specific to a banjo ukulele. They do function pretty well. I gotta say that their color choices of the design, in my opinion, are a little bit radical. They'd be probably a little further ahead to go with something that's more neutral. Personally, I don't really like the look of the red flames, etc. And I mentioned earlier about the pickup that comes with it. So it just basically sticks onto the front there. Show you that image. So overall, this is actually a pretty decent package to get you started. All right, so we're going to start the sound samples off with the camise, then we'll work our way to the Ohana, then we'll have a look at the Duke, then we'll come back to the camise again so you can hear the differences from one to the other. And again, folks, this isn't just to show these three different models. It's just to show you also maybe the difference in the woods, the difference in the design, closed back with the other one that has a different type of a closed back, one with an open back, larger head versus smaller head, etc., etc. Okay? And you'll be able to hear some are louder, some are warmer, some are more brash. Okay? So let's give it a try. Here we go. All right, so you can really hear the difference in the sound. This instrument here, the Ohana, is really loud, and it's got more of a twang to it, more of that brashiness to it, right? Where you look at something like the Duke, it's a much warmer, sort of a mellower kind of a sound, not as in your face kind of a sound to it, right? And that's just a personal preference thing, right? A lot of people maybe like that twanginess. Other people, it puts them off. When I talk about the Duke, that's a standard ukulele player's banjo ukulele, if you know what I'm saying. So if you're going from a regular uke and you want a banjo uke, but again, you really don't want that in your face, over twang, super loud kind of an instrument, that's where you might settle on for something like this. If you want the real super banjo twang, really loud kind of an instrument, you'd settle into something like this one, the Ohana, right? Gold Tone has one as well that I've reviewed. I'll put a link to that one, which is the Little Gem. And price-wise, it's a little bit less than one of these. And it's more along this line. It has that extra twang. It's even louder than this. It's an absolute cannon. But it's a polycarbonate instrument. Okay, so the whole thing basically is made out of plastic. When I first saw them, I wasn't sure if I really liked them or not. And I think people kind of go one way or the other on them. Looks wise, they're very different. There's an image of it here, but they have a resonator, and it kicks the sound forward. And you know, they make a good instrument. They're really loud, right? So you just have to decide what's right for you, what's the price point that you want to hit, and what you're thinking, right? A lot of people will start off with something like the camise or an acklot, etc. And I refer to those sort of as the gateway drug to banjo ukulele, because a lot of people start with them. And then you kind of get an idea of what it is that you really like once you get into it. Do I want extra twang? Do I want a more mellow, kind of a woodsier kind of a sound? Do I like the size? Do I like the weight? Right? Do I want something that I'm going to be able to take to my song circle and plug it in? Does it have that option available, right? And you weigh out all those balances, etc., and you're going to come up with the one that's right for you. So I hope this video has helped you folks out. If you want more information on ukuleles or banjo ukuleles, make sure to visit us at fourstringstrummer.ca. There's lots of instruments on there to pick and choose from and to do some research on. All right, folks, until we see you next time, keep smiling, keep strumming, and have fun. Maybe with one of these videos right over here. Bye for now.